Solutions. And from ABSA, overcoming all obstacles.
There was a nip in the air, and it was overcast as the pit area slowly came to life on race day. As is always the case, there was an air of tension as teams made final preparations for what, for some, would turn into a long day. Drivers and co-drivers swapped pleasantries, and one driver not fazed by the tension was local farmer Brett Gurney, who led the Class B runners on the prologue. Although he lives in the area, Gurney did not see this as an advantage in the race.
Yeah, maybe in some ways, maybe a slight advantage. And the marking's always so good at Sugarbelt that, yeah, it's not really a problem. You can see exactly where you're wanting to go.
There is a camaraderie in off-road racing not often found in other branches of motorsport. And there's plenty of rivalry, but it's always good-natured.
The Nissan Sugarbelt 400 drew an entry of 90 national and regional competitors. It was an indication of the healthy state of off-road racing in South Africa, with the ABSA Championship a jewel in the Motorsport South Africa crown. A good crowd of enthusiasts braved the early morning chill to watch the start, with the pit area an impressive sight from the air. On the ground, Anthony Taylor and Robin Houghton were first car away, with the Castrol Toyota crew looking to make the most of being first on the road.
There was a gap of 22 seconds between Taylor and Houghton and the Century Property Development Racing CR1 4x4 in the hands of Mark Corbett and Rudy Balzar. Colin Matthews and Mark Deschalain set off with all guns blazing, and after that, there was plenty of start line activity as clerk of the course Rex Borum flagged cars away. Neil Woolridge and Kenny Scholthammer beat Chris Visser and Jaapie Badenhorst to the first corner, but there was still an awfully long way to go.
All on their own at the front of the field, Anthony Taylor and Robin Houghton were determined to make the most of being first on the road. After a bit of a shaky start to the season, the Castrol Toyota crew were also looking for a morale-boosting result. The same applied to Corbett and Balzar, a former Northern Transvaal bodybuilding champion, who were desperate to put an end to the long string of non-finishers in the CR1 4x4.
Colin Matthews and Mark Deschalain started the race as though there was no tomorrow. Deschalain is a former Class B champion and was having his first outing alongside Matthews, who is a flyer. Evan Hutchison and Achim Bergman were chasing after Matthews and Deschalain, and there was early disappointment for the Century Property Development Racing pair. Just 8 kilometers into the race, the back was standing on the side of the road as Hutchison and Bergman roared past.
Matthews and Deschalain cut lonely figures as they tried to hitch a lift with the camera helicopter, while Hannes Grobler and Joan Moore were also building up a head of steam in the lead Donaldson Nissan Navara.
Anthony Taylor and Robin Houghton were making good use of a clear road ahead of them with no dust problem. There were wet patches here and there, but for the most part of it, it was going to be hot and dusty. The route was also going to be a test for co-drivers, with the sugarcane sections akin to driving through a narrow tunnel with numerous side roads calling for precise navigation.
The Motorride Revo 1 4x4 of Evan Hutchinson and Achim Bergman had moved to the front of the special vehicle field and was chasing after the Toyota. The Revo 1's distinctive body is based on a model racing car and, in comparison to other Class A cars, runs on Mari Biscuit tyres. Whatever the design, it works, and Hutchinson and Bergman were starting to dominate the special vehicle category for the third time in a row. The dust was starting to pick up, but Hannes Grobler and Joan Moore were a solid third on the road and second in the production vehicle category. Behind them, Chris Visser and Jaapie Badenhorst were still chasing after the turbo diesel Ford Ranger in the hands of Neil Woolridge and Kenny Scholthammer. For Woolridge, there was the added burden of high expectations from a home crowd.
With their confidence sky high after a fourth on the Dakar Rally, Norwegian Ivar Tollefsen and British co-driver Quinn Evans were also making good progress in another of the 3 factory Donaldson Nissan Navaras in the field. After a great prologue, Mark Corbett and Rudy Balzar lost ground, but the chunky-looking Century Property Development CR1 was still sounding great.
Also sounding good was the Zarko of Herman and Wichard Salwold, and the pair started to close in on Corbett and Balzar. Mike Whitehouse and Matthew Carlson were a solid fourth among the specials, but their day was to go from bad to worse. By contrast, Nick Harper, who has 10 Comrades marathons under his belt, and son Ryan, had picked up a place or two in the Atlas Copco bat and were making steady progress.
The second factory Castrol Toyota Hilux of Hein Latergan and Chris Birkin was also making steady progress, but they were being hunted down by local crew Don Thompson and Don Blakey. The KZN pair were leading Class P after gearbox failure, so Jan and Hendrik Kraai failed to start. George and Sharon Barkhuizen were also going along steadily enough in the AIM Toyota Hilux, and it was behind them that matters were hotting up. A gentle nudge let Johan and Etienne Besaidnout know that Clint Gibson and Gary Campbell wanted to get past.
Former champion Shamir Variawa and Siegfried Rousseau were chasing after Gibson and Campbell, whose next victim was Atang Makgeggenene in an aging raceco on loan from Gary Berthold. After completing the prologue on his own, Makgeggenene had been joined in the car by Lesotho co-driver Victor Nsheke, with the pair also under attack from Christian de Plooy and Henk Janse van Vieren, who'd built up a head of steam in the RFS Toyota Hilux.
There were some tough midfield battles developing, with George and Sharon Barkhuizen being chased by veterans Nandus Alberts and Jeff Minnett, who were having a ball in the Rapsa bat. Alberts loves the Nissan Sugarbelt, and they had made up a couple of places already. Also involved in the midfield battles was the Unifreight Ford Ranger in the hands of Kobus van Tonde and Rian Guapa. The pair are enthusiastic privateers who are the backbone of off-road racing, but a small overshoot was to cost them just a little time.
By the time Van Tonde and Guelpa got going again, Atang Makgeggenene had gone past, and the Ford crew now had the de Plooy Janse van Vieren RFS Toyota Hilux on their tail.
Local farmer Brett Gurney was still out in front of the Class B field in the JRE and was perfectly at home in the sugarcane sections. The cane also held no fears for another local pair in Marcus Taylor and Derry Keith, who were sailing along in another JRE. Their pace was positively pedestrian compared to Nissan pair Duncan Foss and Ralph Pitchford, who started in 55th place. They were taking no prisoners and hauling in car after car after car.
Local crews were dominating Class B, with another KwaZulu-Natal team in Rob Spencer and Gareth Mumford third in class and looking comfortable in the Zarko.
Class B newcomers Johan van Staden and James Rousseau in the KEC Bat have made an impressive start to their national campaign, but had picked up a little debris along the way. Van Staden and Rousseau had also moved ahead of regional competitors Rob and Margie Fletcher in the Ace-Tech Zarko and Lance de Three and Guy Grayling in a raceco.
With Tony Ball's tiny Bulwer Park Mighty Mag single-seater being chased by the SP-Class Transcore Ford Ranger, driven by Graham Leith and Mike Lawrenson, it was a case of David versus Goliath. Not far behind this little battle were Cliff and Louis Weichelt, who'd taken early control of Class D in the N1 4x4 Toyota Hilux D4D.
There was a change in the Class E pecking order when the 4x4 Mega World Toyota Hilux of rookie Pikkie Labuschagne and Rikus Erasmus caught the Rubicon Racing Ford in the hands of Louw de Bruin and Rian Grayling. With a warning screamer blaring, the Toyota crew sailed past the Ford, which had developed a turbo problem.
Former rally driver Tony Ball and his little Mighty Mag were under siege again when they were caught by the Ferodo Nissan hardbody of Leroy Poulter and Rob Howie, who were having a tremendous tussle with Bapi Rubeluza and Kulili Vakalisa in the factory Ford Ranger. In the end, the Nissan had the legs on the Mighty Mag, with the Ford in hot pursuit.
Another good battle had developed in Class D, where Kutsia Labuschagne and Johan Gerber in Raysonics Nissan hardbody had locked horns with the Micron XL Toyota Hilux of Heini Strumpfer and Hendrik van der Linde.
When crews completed the first loop of what was a figure-of-8 course, the Castrol Toyota Hilux of Anthony Taylor and Robin Houghton was still in a comfortable lead in the production vehicle category. Second on the road and in control of the special vehicle category were Evan Hutchinson and Achim Bergman in the Motorite Revo 1 4x4. Hannes Grobler and Joan Moore were given a little encouragement from their service crew and were looking strong in the Donaldson Nissan Navara. Also looking in good shape were Neil Woolridge and Kenny Shorthammer in the turbo diesel Ford Ranger, with Woolridge on home soil.
The RFS Toyota Hilux in the hands of Chris Visser and Jaapie Badenhorst was still chasing after the Ford and in turn was starting to come under a little pressure from Ivar Tollefson and Quinn Evans.
Mark Corbett and Rudy Balzar were still second in the special vehicle category, but pulled into the pits for some running repairs.
While other crews waited for their charges, there was frantic activity and a little confusion in the Century Property Development Racing pit.
Vehicle and asset finance from ABSA, going the extra mile to get you financed.